Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session at the Europeana 2020 conference. You've joined us for LoveStories, digital storytelling experiences we can't stop thinking about. And I am Beth Daly, and I'm the editorial advisor at the Europeana Foundation, and I'm also chair of a new task force for the Europeana Network Association called Europeana as a Powerful Platform for Storytelling, and it's this group that's bringing you this session today. So I would just like to tell you a little bit about that task force before we go into the wonderful examples that our members are going to share with you today. So the aim of this new task force, which started in September, is to do some research and to provide some recommendations on good practices for engaging and effective storytelling around the web, particularly that involves cultural heritage. Ultimately, we want to provide recommendations that will feed into the work that gets done with editorial on the Europeana Collections website to help turn that into what our strategy refers to it as a powerful platform for storytelling. So our task force members come from all over Europe, and they're all sorts of people. We have people from the cultural sector who work in communications. We have academic researchers from universities. We have PhD students, teachers, tech professionals. We have consultants. We have a huge range of people who bring their own interests and expertise, and we're really lucky to have some of those people contributing to the session today. So do keep an eye on our outcomes via Europeana Pro. Later on in the year, we should be able to share with you in early next year a long list of good examples of storytelling that we found. We're going to look into some case studies and sort of analyse those in a bit more detail, and then ultimately produce these recommendations, which we hope will be valuable not just to Europeana, but to anybody who wants to produce storytelling experiences to do with cultural heritage. And also, we want to know what storytelling experiences you love. So share your favourite storytelling experiences using the conference hashtag Europeana 2020. And also, if you're into this kind of thing, which I'm sure you are, because that's why you're here, do join the digital aperitivo on social media later from 4 o'clock. That's going to be fantastic. This task force and the digital aperitivo come under the umbrella of Europeana Communicators, which is one of the specialist communities within the Network Association. So if you like this, if you like the kind of things you would do, please do go to Europeana Pro and look us up. The link's there, but you can just search for Europeana Communicators and you can join us, and we'd love to have you as part of our community. So now we're on to the reason you're here, which is for members of our task force to share with you some of the storytelling experiences they found online that they really love. Storytelling to me is much more than conveying information. When we start to include elements of storytelling, what we're doing is connecting people and connecting people's emotions to the topic in hand. So that's what we're looking at today. What examples, what experiences have people found or been part of online that really they feel quite passionate about, that they can't stop thinking about? And these are going to come thick and fast at you. This is all pre-recorded. So they'll flow one into the other. But all of our contributors are here on Zoom, ready to answer your questions or respond to your comments in the chat. So please do add them, and they will also add the links to the things that they're talking about so that you can follow them. And I very much hope that you enjoy them. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I am Carola Carlino and I am a PhD student at the University of Naples Lorientale in Italy. In the next 3 minutes I will talk about an example of digital storytelling promoted by the National Archaeological Museum of Taranto, or Marta Museum, with whom my research group, the Unior and LP, and I collaborate. Path for Future is a video game set at the Marta Museum, and it has been created by the gamer Fabio Viola, founder of the Tuo Museo Cultural Association, in collaboration with the director of the Marta Museum, Eva degli Innocenti. This video game is part of a huge project aimed at enhancing the Italian cultural heritage in an interactive and engaging modality. Other products of this project are the video games Father and Son, played at the Archaeological Museum of Naples, and the Medici game for the Uffizi Museum in Florence. Path for Future is freely available for Android and iOS devices, and it can be played both outside and inside the museum. During the adventure, some rooms containing the most famous exhibits of the museum can be explored. Indeed, the app notices via GPS if the player is close to or inside the museum, even in the real world, allowing them to access extra content. The story of Past or Future links past, present, and future in two different cities. The story begins in a rainy London and finishes in a sunny Taranto. Among these two cities, the protagonist of the story, William, moves with a fluctuating and melancholic trend through his physical journey and his moral growth. In fact, in the idea of the game creator, William is the emblem of many young people today who feel misguided and unable to live the present with few answers for the future. The techniques of gaming and storytelling create a narrative structure that performs several functions. The first one is didascalic or informative, since many objects of the museum, as well as some parts of the ancient city that are represented in the game, are supported by short descriptions. Secondly, the evolution of the game implies continuous choice by the gamer on the actions to be performed by the main character in order to reconstruct the story and to solve the enigma of the mysterious disappearance of which we are informed at the beginning of the game. This step makes the player assume an active role in the game and to be completely involved in the story. Finally, the narrated events and the atmosphere created with a two-dimensional graphic and the use of an emotional soundtrack determine a particular perception in the player. Indeed, after a few minutes from the beginning of the game, when the most important details about the story have been provided, the player has the perception that William is a familiar person. This empathy turns the protagonist's research of the story into the personal research of the player in the past to better understand the present and the future. That, if we reflect about, this is the purpose of storytelling, to tell stories, to involve, to make known, and mainly to keep the past united with the future through the present. Thank you for your attention.
Hello again, everybody. It's Beth Daly back again. And this is my pick for today. This is a close read from the New York Times. It was published in the summer of this year. It's by Jason Farago and it's called A Picture of Change for a World in Constant Motion. And it's a close examination of this image you can see now, which is a Japanese woodblock print by Hokusai. It's a really simple user journey. All I do is scroll down and I'm taken through Jason Farago's interpretation of this image. Here we go. So as you can see, as I scroll down, text appears on the left-hand side, a small amount of text. There's a lot of white space used, which makes me feel relaxed, makes me feel like I'm in safe hands. There's not too much going on here. I'm being guided. And you can see the text on the left is not just factual text, it's an interpretation. It uses evocative language, it's creative. He says about the wind, a wind is blowing with the force of a steamroller. But it's also factual. This author obviously has a lot of knowledge that they're sharing with us. So we can see that this is from Hokusai's 36 Views of Mount Fuji, of which more later. So as you can see, as I scroll down, we move in and out to various sections of the image. Obviously, a very high quality image is being used here. And he tells us about each element as we go through. Now I'm going to click to slightly lower down where we see some of the other Fuji images from the same series so that you can compare the use of Mount Fuji in all of these images. Very, very famous one there. But we always come back to the image in question in focus today, which is here. A little lower down again, we broaden our horizons a little bit to see other artists who've been inspired by this Japanese woodblock print technique and what it gives visually with its blocks of colour and hard transitions from tone to tone. and you will recognise some of these artists and artworks. And again, we always return to the original here. And then what I really like down at the bottom, we see a very modern interpretation of this with, this is made up of layers and layers of photographs rather than a woodblock print. And you can see, again, he scrolls in and out, that we have a businessman, we have, look, there's in the original was a woman in a kimono, and here in a pantsuit, and her papers fly out of a red folder. And we always return back to our main image. So I love this because it's clear, because it's easy, and because the language and the passion from the author is so clear. And I really have kept thinking about this since I first saw it over the summer. And I saw it on mobile. It worked beautifully on mobile as well. So that's my pick for today. Thank you.
Hello, dear Europeana fans. This is Dr. Jochen Büchel from Munich, Germany, and I would like to make reference to two very nice MOC, so teaching learning video products, who have been made by Universidad Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona. One of both in collaboration with the Center for Contemporary Art, CCCB. Before I describe this a little bit, I want to point out why I recommend this. I myself coming from biochemistry and realized that molecular medicine for the future of the society should be more holistic. So I realized that a combination of philosophy, sociology, and arts is essential. But this integration is quite difficult because the experts don't have too much time. So I found out that we need media to convey this. And this is exactly what digitalization and cultural heritage can offer. If it's made nicely, it shows the people how science and culture are connected, related, and thus go beyond a too rationalistic scientific understanding. After a PhD, in my case, on images and diagrams in medicine, I realized that there are some museums who start to combine science and cultural heritage with the help of arts. The first example is from Ramon Llull. It's a medieval philosopher from Catalonia. And the exhibition and the MOC shows how his medieval thinking, combining science and poetry and arts, how this is still valid, how this is one of the basics of informatics, and can still create us, give us creativity impulses to advance. And the second one is on medicine, that a medical therapist, in order to give the patient a good guidance and good impulse, that he also should understand arts and literature in order to understand all his emotional contexts. Yeah, thanks for listening to me, and hope you can deal with the links I added.
Hello, my name is Olga Terinetska, and this is my this year's recommendation to you, a Go East virtual study tour, which took place in summer this year, and now there is a similar Go West tour. You might be curious to check, as it covers the most important elections on our planet, but more importantly, you get a chance to travel across all of the US, from Los Angeles and San Francisco until New York and Union Station at the Washington, D.C. Back to the main recommendation, which is called Go East. And it's a 13-hour, 44 minutes digital travel study tour led by Daniel Kraft from the German Network of Civic Education, BPB. It has been prepared to commemorate end of the Cold War and Berlin Wall fall events in the Central and Eastern Europe. And it covers the real train route of the legendary Hungarian EC 173 train, which ran from Hamburg through Berlin, Dresden, Prague, and Bratislava until Budapest about 30 years ago, between 1989 and, until 91. In the course of the virtual journey, there is an unbeatable bundle of entertainment activities presented by people from major and minor locations on this route you could choose from. They range from learning about urban photography and communication with humanities experts to yoga pilates, from local poets, meeting local poets and listening to city guides, to meeting real legendary people who are historical figures because they made these decisions of passing the local governance during the political regime changes. And also meeting the writers, the Modern European Cultural Award winners in literature and art. And how could a good trip be not accompanied by a chance to learn how to cook most famous dishes of the region, according to the gastronomy professionals? So as you could see, this is why I chose Go East virtual study tour, and is my recommendation to you. It's absolutely user-friendly. You could access all of and any part of this storytelling experience using social media. So I'm just sharing with you the respective links and wishing you to keep tuned and not miss the ongoing Go West part of the virtual series. Bye-bye!
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caterina Ruscio, and I'm an archaeologist and museum educator. I'm here today to share with you one of the activities of the National Roman Museum in Rome that became a very interesting experience. The experience of the storytelling that people could actually read on the most important social media and during the months of the lockdown in between March and May. The communication officers decided to literally to promote some of the epigraphs and reliefs that are part of the National Roman Museum collection on the social media, imagining and telling stories about the characters mentioned in the inscriptions. Consider that these stories are very well structured, very well written. And I could actually notice three important key factors. The author showed empathy, love, and also the capacity of contextualizing the stories from the historical point of view. So it's like we can see these people living in those centuries, understanding the life that they had, and also the social context, so their social status in which they acted. Here we got, on this slide, one of the inscriptions that I selected for this presentation. It's Funerari Stele. The inscription reads Ossa Sophis Cantrices. So it's actually an inscription of a lady whose name was Sophis. She was a singer, and it was something dedicated to her after she died. But the story that it was developed behind this inscription is extremely interesting, because a man says he met and loved the singer. He describes the emotion he feels when hearing her voice, and that voice eventually reminds him of a lullaby from when he was a child. One of the other inscriptions I selected is this one of a man whose name was Publius Rutilius. The story that is imagined behind is that he was thankful to the goddess Juno, and so he gave her a gift. We can imagine that probably the gift was one of the statues of terracotta, which are actually exposed along with the inscription inside of the museum. And I can imagine myself this man writing and donating the inscription with this terracotta statue, being thankful and probably being full of joy for the birth of his child. One more inscription that I selected is again a funerary inscription, where actually there is a man mentioned called Agelavos. And Agelavos was actually a slave. That's what we get from the inscription. It was an accountant. Probably he was able to develop his own career, and he had his tomb built before he died. So the story imagined behind is that he wanted that tomb made before he died because he was very proud of his career. He didn't want to be depending on others. So that's why he wanted the inscription to be so carefully written with beautiful decorations like these two columns on the side of the inscriptions, and also the garlands all on the top. And here we have the very last of the inscriptions that I selected is actually a part of a relief, that one I'm showing you in the picture, and it's basically showing you a teacher with his pupils listening. And it's something that the National Roman Museum decided to post on one of the social media as a special dedication to the students who were back to school in September.
I have always loved people stories. Stories with people found in difficult situations or living historical events. Among them, I love most the stories gathered during Europeana 1989 and Europeana migration campaigns. And of course, my favorite is my own contribution to Europeana 1989 campaign in Bucharest, where I was able to share Ruxandra's story. Ruxandra, my friend with whom I used to play in my childhood, died tragically in December 1989 revolution in Romania. She was shot in the head and the military tanks crushed her body. Sharing her story 25 years after her death was important for me, as I felt I finally did something in her memory, and her sacrifice was not forgotten. But many other touching stories can be found in this archive. So, as in Europeana migration collections, where people can read, for instance, Maria Luisa's story from the communist times. She describes the total censorship in communist prisons, where one had nothing, not even a piece of paper or a pencil, to write a few lines to the relatives. Those were times when people like her embroidered letters on textile pieces in order to send messages to home. These simply told, simply recorded stories have the power of a testimony, where historical information go hand in hand with the feeling, and the sense with the sensibility and emotion. And these kind of stories are good examples of the healing power of community digital storytelling. That's why I love them.